Off the ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then.
What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Welcome along, Football Show. We got plenty going on. Nathan Murphy is here. Hello.
How are you?
Very well. This is a football show I'm more than ready to sit back into and enjoy, because we've got you reviewing the TV, which has Ivan Yates, Eamon Dunphy, John Giles, Liam Brady in action together. And we have Mark Lawrenson on this evening talking about Merseyside derbies of the 80s. This is a football show I'm more than happy to get on board with and relax into, I must say.
Yeah, you think we're sort of going back to the golden age of broadcasting.
This is why we got into the game. This is why we got into the game.
Paying homage to the greats of the game and Ivan.
I'll come to Amazon Prime in a second, which is the reason, in part, that Dunphy, Brady and Giles have been reunited here on Premier Sports. This is one of the packages that Amazon Prime have bought, as well as the 26th, 27th of December. They've bought 20 games a year. This is a 3-year contract. Don't know what they paid for it, but BT Sport have paid 90 million for a similar package a couple of years ago. So you would think it's a reasonably sized chunk of change. Amazon going with 43 presenters: Alan Shearer, Jermaine Genius, Michael Owen, Thierry Henry is back, Gabby Logan, Conor McNamara, Guy Mowbray, and each game will be broadcast live, and there will also be a separate goals show. So that's all going on. And that is not available here in the Republic of Ireland, so Premier Sports have swooped in, and they have decided to put the band back together.
They certainly have.
Talk to me.
Well, we've had some of the greatest hits so far. Within the opening 2 minutes, we had Eamon Dunphy extolling the brilliance of Liam Brady and John Giles in their playing days. Two of Ireland's greatest ever players.
Deep down, you enjoyed that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a winner. That's a great.
All of this makes me feel a little bit warm.
It's like you walked out on stage and played Wonderwall. You're like, grand, we're up and running.
I will sit and watch Dunphy, Giles and Brady all day long, because something crazy is going to happen.
Has there been
It may not be tonight.
Any withering looks in the direction of Yates?
I think there's just a general disdain that was there right from the start. You know, that sort of look of, we're all doing this for the money. We all know what's going on here. But, yeah, there was... Dunphy brought up betting a couple of times. Himself and Ivan like a bet.
Oh, yeah.
So they had a bit of a laugh about that.
He rings
so
Giles,
all the hits.
He rings Giles during games to get advice on what bet to put on.
Well, he started going around the table, and eventually I think they'd agree that they all like a bet. So it was, you know, Ivan kept it simple.
Yeah. No flashpoints yet, though.
Nothing. It's not tomorrow night, perhaps. Both John and Liam felt that Liverpool had the title pretty much in the bag. But I think Ivan made a terrible mistake. At one stage, he tried to put words into John's mouth. He goes, John, I think you think this is done. What do you mean? What do you mean by done? We've all been in that position.
You've made that mistake.
We've all been there. You don't want to do that. He could have come to us and we could have given him a bit of advice here.
Yeah.
But it's Burnley, Manchester City. Maybe tomorrow night. I think they're doing the Merseyside derby. You'd love actually to see them on United Spurs and a bit of Jose.
Yeah.
Proper digging into Jose.
It's quite strange seeing them without a desk.
It's very low, the desk.
Yeah, it's like
There's a lot of neon show.
A lot of neon show, yeah. Giles, he's gone for navy blazer, white shirt, big navy tie. Dunphy, no tie, obviously. Brady, no tie.
The great Gary Breen and co-commentary.
Oh, yeah.
Some serious analysis. Manchester City winning 1-0, by the way.
Yes, that's important.
Great goal by Gabriel Jesus, who we've sort of all written off, despite the fact he's 22. But a definite feeling that he's really not ready to step into Sergio Aguero's shoes over a prolonged period of time. The Amazon one is interesting because we've all spent so long talking about this and wondering about this, and everybody kind of only realised this week that it's not actually going to happen in Ireland.
Yeah.
That we don't have access. I actually have Amazon Prime. I just can't figure out how to cancel it. I got it for the Manchester City documentary, and it's still there. And then I presumed, kind of left it for the last few months thinking, well, at least I'll have them games. But no. Premier Sports have the rights over here.
Well, they'll have Leicester-Liverpool on Stephen's Day, and United playing Newcastle that day as well. Sky TV customers here are paying €92 a month if they're getting everything, if they're getting Sky Sports and BT Sport and Premier Sports. So it's becoming incredibly expensive. We were just chatting earlier on today, and I think it was Simon Jordan made this point I saw on Twitter yesterday on TalkSport, that pretty soon, surely, the Premier League will look at all this thing and look at the NFL and just effectively say, yeah, we're going to take all this over now. We're not selling you the rights. You can show some of the games, we'll distribute the games, but we're also going to set up the equivalent of Premier League Netflix, and you pay X per month and you get all the games in one place.
That will surely be the biggest test of the Premier League and the equilibrium that's there, where everything is shared quite fairly. How do Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal look at those negotiations when there's a TV rights deal? Do they say, yeah, 1/20th of that will do us just fine, thank you very much? Or do they go, actually, we'll take a quarter of that, and the other 10 clubs can sort of spread it between themselves, keep yourself semi-competitive, but by and large, we want the cash.
There's different packages as well in the NFL. Like the lads were saying, you can just say, well, I'm just getting my team, all of my team's games, and then the postseason, the playoffs. So that's a really enticing package, I would think, for a lot of people as well. And it really wasn't that as expensive as it was
No, they were talking about, what, $65 a year?
Yeah. So if you're paying $92 a month to have all the channels to get all the games,
as I am,
reasonable. Yeah, well.
I constantly want to cancel part of it, but then something good just keeps cropping up.
Also, you can't come into work and be like, how you doing, welcome along. What happened in the game yesterday?
Yeah, I just don't have the channels. I just can't afford it.
FAI. We won't spend too long on this. You did a good bit on this with Dan yesterday.
Well, we touched on the fact that John Foley had stepped aside as interim CEO on his first morning as interim CEO, said he didn't have the backing of key stakeholders. Lo and behold, Shane Ross comes out yesterday evening just before we go on air saying, we're not quite happy with this. Didn't mention John Foley by name, but that they felt there shouldn't be any connection to the previous regime, which there was with John Foley, because he'd sat on the executive for, I think it was 12 years under John Delaney. So there was a board meeting last night, and today they have come up with the situation and the solution, it seems, that Paul Cook, who's been through about 4 roles already since he came in last spring, he has not got the interim CEO role, but he's the FAI's executive lead, which it seems is the same job, but just a slightly different name. He'd been in the role of vice president since the AGM in July. He's going to be based full-time at Abbottstown. He met staff earlier today. Staff obviously had a lot of questions. There was a statement from SIP2 last night saying that morale, understandably, is incredibly low. There have been media reports of potentially 100 job losses over the past week. And they're obviously asking, well, if there are job losses, who's making that decision? Who's in charge here? And that news comes through. Paul Cook is a chartered accountant, so when the accounts do come out on Thursday, he should at least be able to give a good explanation as to what has happened, where it goes next. Within those accounts will be the terms of John Delaney's final payments, 370,000 plus another 50,000 and another sum on top of that may bring it close to $500,000. I'm not quite sure how that will go down with the public. I'm sure the FAI will say legally it was probably the best possible deal they could get. John Delaney had just moved to a new role, had signed a new contract. So Paul Cook comes in. He'd be very well known, particularly in media circles. He was in charge of the Star and the Business Post at various stages, and has been involved in Irish football as well on the FAI Council for quite a while. Should that rule him out of this role? It seems that maybe Shane Ross thinks it should. Now, he was actually, Paul Cook, one of the few people ever to quiz John Delaney back in 2009. He quizzed the board in relation to an unexplained figure of €5.2 million included in the accounts that were recorded as exceptional costs relating to the Aviva Stadium. So he has asked questions, not many of them. But Shane Ross was out with another statement this evening saying the minister notes media reports regarding the appointment of Paul Cook as executive lead at the FAI, which would suggest, for starters, that he wasn't told by the FAI that this is what happened. As has been stated repeatedly and most recently yesterday, Ministers Ross and Griffin believe the most urgent priorities for the FAI should be the appointment of the 4 independent directors, the independent chairperson, and the filling of the CEO vacancy, whether on an interim or full-time basis. Various stakeholders will continue to be concerned until such time as the board and the executive are led by the completely independent people without any prior or present involvement within the FAI. We look forward to an early appointment of an independent CEO following a thorough process. Government funding cannot be restored until such independent directors and an independent CEO are in place.
And with that, Ross thinks another press release, it gets reported everywhere. It's the easiest football to kick around that there is. Politically, I can't lose here. This is just a lot of fun. I'm making political hay. So on the accounts on Thursday, we're expecting some pretty devastating news, I think.
Shocking was the word that Paul Cook himself used a couple of months back.
Yeah, they're not downplaying it, that's for sure. So maybe look, they're trying to kind of scare people into thinking it's going to be absolutely, utterly horrific, and then when it's only quite terrible, that will seem like not so bad. The interesting story, I saw it on the back page of the Irish Independent, it may be elsewhere, sorry if it is or if it isn't, but Dan McDonnell had a piece that UEFA experts, how casually, I don't know, it seems like maybe it was just a fairly casual suggestion, we're saying, well, if you need some cash, FAI, maybe you could sell your stake in the Aviva Stadium to ease financial problems. Now, if they end up having to do that, it will be to their eternal shame. That is a really, really, really bad idea. I didn't get the impression this is something the FAI jumped all over and said, oh yeah, let's really consider that.
No, but you can see why from a UEFA point of view, if they're looking for a fix, maybe not a entirely quick fix, but a substantial fix that will deal with a lot of their issues, this would seem like something of an obvious solution. It would be to their eternal shame.
Yeah.
But you could argue that the FAI, not the staff, not the people working on the ground, but the FAI as an organisation deserves that sort of eternal shame for the way that it has run Irish football over the last decade. That actually, maybe that deserves to be the legacy. It will be unbelievably damaging. It's one of a number of proposals, I'm sure, that are being thrown out there by UEFA. But if we are looking at a situation where I was at John Delaney and Eamon Breen, the last financial reports were about 18 months ago, maybe 15 months ago at this stage. And at the time, the debt was around 30 million. They were saying even then there was going to be a board meeting and whether they decide to push ahead and be done with the debt by 2020, before Euro 2020 comes to town, and John Delaney will be able to go out singing that he is the man who, look at our beautiful stadium, we have no debt on this whatsoever. It could well be closer to 50 million. UEFA have been around over the last while, 6 months, are obviously fully aware of exactly what's in the accounts. It seems from what Dan was writing, they've given 15 million in advance funds to ensure that wages can be paid.
So this is like television money that they would be due in a couple of years.
Exactly.
The FAI have said, we'll take it now.
And it also, when you look at qualifying for Euro 2020, 9.5 million is the basic prize fund. Whereas once upon a time, we would have looked at that and thought, huge positive for Irish football, because where can we invest that money? Now it's just, well, money that's going to disappear back into the ether. And the UEFA may well be looking at the shenanigans that have been going on in terms of trying to fill these roles and who's running the FAI, and probably a little bit concerned, thinking it may take 6-9 months to appoint a CEO, that cuts need to be made now, changes need to be made now. Is anybody willing to make them? Is there anybody in a position who understands where they should be made? If there are job cuts, where are the areas where they can do least damage? Are they going to save massive amounts of money by cutting lowly salaried staff? Cutting jobs and redundancies is going to cost the company money anyways. Like pay cuts isn't going to save them a huge amount of money. That actually, if they're looking for a big decision, that maybe it needs something like this, a sale of a capital investment. The obvious buyer would be the IRFU. Potentially you could have a private company come in and buy it and try and rent the stadium out and rent it to the FAI and for concerts and try and make the money back that way. But it is worth remembering that it's going to go back to the IRFU anyways in 50 years' time. That while it's a 50-50 share on the stadium, the land is still owned by the IRFU.
It was a 60-year
lease, so we're 10 years into that. So eventually it is going to go back to the IRFU, but it would be absolute humiliation.
Yeah.
And also, the IRFU know exactly what's going on in the FAI. Are they going to be paying top money?
No, they'll be screwed in the deal, is the other thing. Manchester City have just scored a second. It's Jesus, really good finish. I volleyed it into the roof of the net, admittedly from close range, but it looked nice. Manchester City 2-0 up away to Burnley, 50 minutes on the clock there.
On our TV review, Liam Brady slated Gabriel Jesus, but did say he'll probably score a hat-trick now tonight just to prove me wrong.
Eamon quickly got the phone out and started typing furiously. Meanwhile, Crystal Palace 1-0 up at home to Bournemouth. That one pretty much done. They're into the 91st minute there. We'll take a short break. So, Merseyside Derby tomorrow. We thought, what better man than Mark Lawrenson to tell us about Merseyside Derby. So, Laura is going to join us next.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen. Grow your business with Gavin McLaughlin.
This week on the Grow Your Business podcast, Ted Webb, Managing Director of IBI Corporate Finance, and Colin Culleton, Chief Executive of TPI Group, join me as we examine the process of acquiring other companies. How do you identify a takeover target? How do you negotiate the best purchase price? And how do you integrate the new business into your existing company?
Grow Your Business from News Talk with Gavin McLaughlin. Thanks to Euronext Dublin.
Listen and subscribe to the podcast now at newstalk.com or on the News Talk app.
Everybody reacts differently to the shocking affordability of the Dacia Duster. The opportunist, I've heard enough, where do I sign? The skeptics, zero deposit, too good to be true. And our competitors, shocked into silence. The Dacia Duster from just €75 per week and absolutely zero deposit. Whatever your reaction is to Ireland's most affordable car brand, there's one waiting for you. Visit your local Dacia dealer today. Finance is made under a hire purchase agreement. Terms and conditions apply, subject to lending criteria. See dacia.ie.
No matter what business you're in, at Electric Ireland we know that having partners you can rely on is more important than ever. That's why, as Ireland's largest electricity supplier, we ensure you'll get a plan based on what's best for your needs and ambitions. So join over 90,000 businesses already partnering with us across the country. To find out how we can help your business, now and in the future, visit electricireland.ie/business today.
Give a 5-star gift this Christmas. Give the gift of Castlemartyr Resort. Whether it's a luxurious spa day, golf experience, afternoon tea or breakaway, we'll make it memorable and you'll make their Christmas. Buy online now at castlemartyrresort.ie.
It's not too late to get Black Friday discounts at Harvey Norman. Save a massive €470 on the Samsung side-by-side fridge freezer, now just €929. Or get the Bosch 8kg heat pump tumble dryer, now just €549, save €90. And at Harvey Norman, we're matching all competitors' prices, so why shop anywhere else? But hurry, the Harvey Norman Black Friday sale must end soon. Don't miss out.
Have a great evening with itsforwomen.ie. Don't live your life on hold. Get a quote now at itsforwomen.ie and see why we're trusted by over 130,000 women in Ireland.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Shearer and Owen.
Wasn't too many players there. Oh, Van Dijk with the volley. He scoops it high up into the arrow, comes off the top of the crossbar. Origi has won it! Unbelievable! Liverpool have won the derby in the most farcical and dramatic of circumstances. You've never seen anything like it. Divock Origi in the 94th minute. Virgil van Dijk, a complete miss kick of a volley, went high up into the air. Everyone thought it was going out of play. It bounces off the top of the crossbar, and Divock Origi, from a couple of yards out, taps it in. That is unbelievable. Liverpool are going to win the derby.
Noel has texted in to say, lads, can we not have one football show that doesn't involve a Liverpool love-in, just for a change? Noel, I don't know what you're talking about. That was, of course, Nathan Murphy's commentary on Origi. And Mark Lawrenson's on the phone. Hi, Mark.
Hi, guys.
No Liverpool love-in here. So, Merseyside derby tomorrow, and obviously the 80s were a really interesting period on Merseyside. Two brilliant teams at the time going head-to-head. I saw a quote from you which was interesting, and you said, if we weren't going to win the title or trophy, then I can honestly say I wanted Everton to. That was mostly because of what was happening in Liverpool at the time in the aftermath of the Toxteth riots in 1981. Merseyside had basically been tossed aside by the government, which was outrageous, and that meant there was a togetherness in the city. It was very interesting. Yeah. Do you think that you just been very politically clued in who felt that way, or everybody was on that page?
I think everybody felt that way, and also they had a very, very good side, as we know, and you know the geography of kind of Liverpool as a player. You kind of lived in the north of the city, you know, like Southport, or you lived on the Wirral, and consequently, I mean, you know, Graham Sharp, Andy Gray, Pat Van Den Houw, we saw them out and about all the time. We had a few beers with them, so myself, Ronnie Whelan and those guys. So it was just the way that it was. And probably, you know, I mean, throughout the 80s, as everybody knows, there was a massive hooliganism problem and there's loads of scraps in and around games. The atmosphere was quite toxic at times between Liverpool and Everton in terms of supporters. But as far as the players were concerned, it wasn't that bad. And I think the fact that they were a very, very good side. The only time they really peed us off, we were in a late bar in the outskirts of Southport one night when they'd won the league, Everton, and they brought the cup in, and there was 4 or 5 of us in there, and they were dancing around with the cup saying hand it over Liverpool. So that didn't really go down well, but hey ho.
Go on. How did you react?
We kept our cool, to be fine, and we just went. We were all at the bar. We went, don't look at them, don't look at them, don't turn round, don't turn round, and then we're going, bastards.
How did it go down? And I guess it was a different time in that there weren't probably as many matches on television, and the supporters were closer to the players, and maybe they had a bit more respect for you because of that. But did the supporters accept that the two teams were actually quite friendly and that you got on quite well? You talk about the atmosphere in the stands. Did they not want that amongst the players as well?
It's difficult to say from the supporters' point of view because red or blue, you're just desperate to actually win, and that's where there were always horrible games to play in for players. But I think they understand. Even the most kind of myopic of Liverpool supporters would realise that Everton were a very, very good side. So it just wasn't a problem between the players. It was just it was a week where I had a sponsored car from a company called Skyway Ford, and it was post box red with all this big writing on it, and kind of 10 days before the derby, I wouldn't drive it. The thought had been stopped at the light somewhere in Liverpool, and some Evertonian turned up alongside me. It was just, no, you better take the wife's car. It was much easier.
When you talk about the political situation there and Thatcherism,
yeah,
I'm curious, because I would have been under the impression, perhaps wrongly, that a lot of footballers, once they got going and started making a bit of money, became or veered towards the Conservatives, or even with a small c.
Well, I think the thing with the political thing was, we had the Toxteth riots. Obviously, I think Heseltine had been up there. He was kind of Thatcher's right-hand man, and somewhere in there was a quote which was kind of, none of them want to work anyway. Just leave it and let the fires burn and let them get on with it. So there was that. There was a tremendous oneness as far as the city were concerned, and in amongst that was the two sets of footballers. I mean, politics is never really an issue that's discussed in dressing rooms. Certainly wasn't in those days. But I just think the fact that if you looked, we weren't filling the grounds. I think our average probably attendance crowd would be kind of middle to late 30s at the best. When we could have got nearly 50, and I think or 40 odd at the very least. And most games, because there was a lack of jobs, poverty, etc. The grounds just weren't full, and we kind of tiptoed around sort of many issues for quite a while, to be honest with you.
So what were Merseyside games like in the 80s then?
Horrible. They're horrible because I'll tell you why, and it doesn't really matter where your team is in the league. And I always felt that if we were above Everton, it made the game worse, because then obviously if you got beat by them, then they were kind of underdogs and they'd beaten you. And I think also that generally the Red Half probably had the best of the games in those sort of 7 or 8 years. And always going into them, you kind of thought, oh my goodness, don't make a mistake, don't get beat, because you're going to get, the difference between the two games was 4 months, so you're going to get 4 months of aggravation, 4 months of someone taking the mickey out of you, those whole kind of things. And generally, because of the way football was in those years as well, I mean, tackles would be flying in and players would be getting sent off. And all those things. And your problem is that sometimes both teams forget to play football and just end up kind of battling against each other. And, I mean, kind of the pure skills that you would see generally between those two teams just would disappear. There'd be elbows flying in and all sorts, and the referee would have a hell of a job just to control it.
That Liverpool team, probably just as you're coming to the end of your time at Liverpool, sort of seems one of the great Liverpool teams, particularly around 87, 88, and maybe that sort of colours our view of that era, that Liverpool were a good step ahead of Everton. But you look at their roll of honour and a couple of league titles, an FA Cup, a European Cup Winners' Cup. Just how great a team were that Everton side around that mid-80s period?
Well, I mean, just look at the players they had. I know you tried to get Reedy on tonight. I mean, Reedy was like a manager on the pitch for them alongside Paul Bracewell. Andy Gray, of course. Gary Lineker came in a little bit later. Adrian Heath, Gary Stevens, the blonde Gary Stevens, Trevor Steven, Kevin Sheedy, of course, who'd been at Liverpool. Kevin Ratcliffe was an outstanding player. Pat Van Den Houw, John Bailey.
Were they similar in style to Liverpool?
Say again?
Were they similar in style to Liverpool and how they played?
Yeah, they were. They probably got the ball up a little bit earlier than we did because of Andy Gray, because he'd head concrete blocks basically if they were chucked in at him. And you know, I mean, the two wide players. I mean, Kevin Sheedy was always a good player. I mean, I think Liverpool made the right decision in the end because it was either Kevin Sheedy or Ronnie Whelan, and they felt that Ronnie Whelan would get them a lot more goals or win games, which was right. But Sheedy had a sweet left foot, as we know. Obviously, played for Ireland as well. Trevor Steven was another one. He was a clever player also. So the styles were very, very similar. But you know, I think, I mean, the year we won the double, I mean, basically a week or 10 days before the last league game, Everton were in control of the league, and then they slipped up, and we kind of obviously won it. And then the week later in the FA Cup final, they battered us for an hour, 1-0 up, and we could hardly string a pass together. And in the end, because of resolve, etc., we managed to get a 3-1 victory. But they could easily have been the double winners instead of us.
What was the high point, low point, if you had to pick or a strong memory from all those games? By the way, Liverpool's record was 1-15 to Everton's 1-7, so generally you did come out on top in the end.
Yeah. High point, low point. I mean, of course, I'm part of that question, which is, you know, Liverpool went to Goodison and won 5-0, and Rushy scored 4, who scored the other one. And I always say it was like from 37 yards outward. It was probably more like 37 centimetres played in midfield that day. In fact, played quite a lot of midfield against Everton. Low points, when Sharpie scored, when the ball was knocked over my shoulder, he controlled it, and he scored just an absolutely amazing goal from about 35 yards, which won, I think, goal of the season. But they also came, I think, and beat us 2-0, and let's say Brucey didn't have his best day. That was particularly low also because nothing really had happened in the game, and it was 2 mistakes which gave them the victory.
You know, when you talk about tackles flying in, did you just dread all that kind of stuff? That wouldn't have been up your street at all, I would have thought.
No, me and Hansen now. We didn't sort of tackle anybody. I mean, Reedy was the one for. I mean, he set the thing off them. But of course, we had Souness, didn't we? And you know, just before I got there, they'd had Jimmy Case, and I mean, tackles were horrendous at times. There were some scores settled, but it was tough. And there was the odd sort of errant tackle, but generally, you know, it was no quarter given or lost, and that's just the way that it was. And to be honest with you, if you didn't show any resolve, you soon copped it from your own supporters.
So if we have a glance towards tomorrow then, Marco Silva's obviously hanging on by a thread, and Liverpool must feel now they're really on the cusp of doing something pretty special, even though May does feel like a long way away. What do you think for tomorrow?
Well, you know, as I said to you at the start, I just think last year, I know you played the clip there with Origi's goal. Last year, Everton were better than Liverpool at Anfield. They really were. They came with a plan. The plan almost worked. They had better chances early on. They just couldn't quite convert them. And that's why I say it's dangerous, because forget about losing in the last minute against Leicester at the weekend. Their performance was actually much better than it had been in recent times. They will play at least 20% above themselves. They haven't really got a goal scorer, but in Calvert-Lewin they've got an absolute total nuisance who's quick and strong. I think they'll get the ball up early. And I know, Van Dijk, etc., and whoever plays alongside him, probably Lovren again. But they cause you lots and lots of problems because the pace of the game is much higher than normal. And, people tend to make mistakes. They tend to make rash judgments. So, and I'm working on it tomorrow. It's just, I look at it and just think, look, if Liverpool win here 1-0, 2-0 at the most, I would absolutely, totally take that now because in derby games, strange things can happen.
What are you thinking about Liverpool's defence at the moment? Because they just can't keep a clean sheet. But
no,
you look at them,
winning.
They keep winning, but you look at them individually then, like Alisson last night at the Ballon d'Or Awards was crowned best goalkeeper. Virgil van Dijk's the best centre-half in the world. You could argue that the two full-backs are the two best in the world in their positions. Is it just that Klopp is looking at defending in a different way than maybe previously people have?
No, and I don't think he's changed. Well, I know he's not changed anything from last season. I just think it's a little bit of a phase in many, many ways. I mean, no team in the league, I think I'm right in saying this year, has scored more than one against them. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as Liverpool score loads of goals, it won't be something that he talks about every day or works on particularly. I think it's just one of those things, and I think the thing with them is, and everyone also says, they're conceding goals and all that kind of stuff, and say they're not playing very well. But last time I looked at this table, there were still however many points clear, and they keep winning, and they keep winning late. They got loads of goals that they score late, and you know what? When you're in a team like that, I said to you a bit before about resolve. I think also then you throw in belief. They're super fit. They will always create chances, even on a really, really bad day. They still create lots and plenty of chances. I don't think it's a particular worry. I think people are picking on it because basically, if you look at the league table, there ain't anything else to pick on, is there?
No, it's true. It's obviously injuries could happen and anything could happen on a range of fronts. But I mean, and it feels silly to say it, but it kind of feels done.
Yeah, well, a few weeks ago, I just said the exact same thing. I just think City completely took their eye off the ball. If you look, the last third of the season, Company, you would argue, would be as good a player as anybody. They've never replaced him, which was strange. Are they saying they couldn't afford £80 million for Maguire, or did they just not fancy him? I don't really know. We knew that Otamendi wasn't a particularly good defender. We know about Laporte was good, but John Stones is still probably finding his feet. He's probably been there 3 or 4 years now. So that was always going to be a problem, and they're just not quite at it. And that's why I just think with Liverpool, they will just keep steamrolling in. And as I said before, I don't think the managers will sit with the coaching staff and think, "Oh God, we've won again, but we're not playing well." He just thinks, "Well done, we've won again. We move on." And I know it's unbelievably, excruciatingly boring, but it is just then the next game. And you sit in the dressing room sometimes. You don't talk about winning the league, certainly not in kind of early December, but you look at the league table and you look and listen at other results, and you just say to yourself, "Wow, we've got a real chance now." And once you have that many players who are all of fantastic quality, and you can afford 1 or 2 injuries, but not in key positions. Obviously, and everybody knows what they are with Liverpool. But you can just see them continuing, and I think that in the end, that City after a while, will just be concentrating on the Champions League. And Guardiola says, "Oh, we've not given up," but he knows privately that it's already too many to catch up with Liverpool.
Just a last one before you go. Colin Kavanagh, listening in Arklow, wants to know, he knows you like your movies, if you've seen Howard's Way, that new documentary on Everton. He says perfectly encapsulates the time on Merseyside. 2 great teams, Liverpool the best in Europe. As Everton, he says, became the best team in the country. The fight against Thatcher, heady times, great movie, whether you're a red or a blue. Have you seen that?
No, I've not, but I've just... I'm waiting to see The Irishman, to be honest with you. So I want to see The Irishman before I see that. I've heard it's okay. I think it's a real fans film. And do you know something? The very first person that I met in football that was like a proper professional was Howard Kendall. I was at school in Preston, and listen to this. Have you heard of Rounders?
Oh yeah, rounders. We love our rounders over here.
Right, okay, there you go. So I was captain of the mixed rounders team at our school at St. Teresa's, and we won this big Preston competition. And being captain, I received the trophy from one Mr. Howard Kendall. I think I was 10.
Destined for great things.
Destined for something.
The Irishman is incredibly dull.
Oh, you've watched it?
It's long, isn't it?
3.5 hours.
Are you going to watch it in the cinema, Mark, or are you just going to watch it at home on Netflix?
No, I'm going to go to the cinema. Listen, but I love Pacino.
Well, you know, each scene, because they're all such wonderful actors, each scene is kind of compelling.
Right.
But the overall effect is incredibly dull.
Okay. I'm still going. Listen, you talk about films, but you talk about sports films. Have you seen Pacino in Any Given Sunday?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, but I think that's the best sports film I've ever seen.
Would you listen to his chat before you go for a run?
Do I?
Yeah. Like
no,
before you
I don't go for a run. Because I can't anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But you should have said go for a walk, and I would have said possibly.
Possibly. When you're walking, you're listening to his speech?
No, when I'm walking, I'm up there with the kids, down there with the kids. I've got my AirPods on.
What are you listening to?
Do you know what I was listening to this morning when I was in the gym? And I just had it on repeat. I was listening to Samba Party. Remember that?
No.
By Carlos Santana?
No.
The guitarist.
Well, you need to download.
Was this the
Samba Party? 3 words. Samba Party.
Was this the 80s Carlos Santana or the 90s rejuvenation of Carlos Santana? The smooth era.
80s, when he had hair and all that stuff.
Okay. We'll play out with it when we come back from an ad break to give people a flavour. Okay. So we'll get your thoughts on the Irishman in due course.
Happy days.
All right. Thanks so much.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers, Mark.
Bye.
Mark Lawrence in there.
Rodri. Waste the money.
What a goal.
Smashed one in from 25 yards on the volley. Oh, caught it so sweetly.
Very satisfying.
David Silva shot, blocked down. He's standing just on the edge of the D, and he hit it perfectly. 3-0 City.
3-0
Gap
City.
is 8 points.
And
It's on.
Crystal Palace have beaten Bournemouth 1-0. Mark Lawrence is just a great broadcaster, isn't he? He's
just a great man.
A pro. Why didn't Amazon sign...
Very likeable man.
Why didn't Amazon sign Laro up? Thierry Henry, Jermaine Genius, all this stuff. I'd listen to Laro over them any day.
See, I think Laro's going to come back in vogue.
Do you?
Yeah. He's still getting his... He's going to be on 5 Live, I presume, tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that old style.
I think he's great. And just the dryness, the bit of humour, a world view he brings to things that Thierry doesn't quite bring from
A willingness to indulge us.
Well, there's that as well. So...
Well, what do you think people want from Amazon? This is what I was wondering.
Can I take an ad break and stew
think
on that?
about it.
Just think
about it.
You mean in terms of like production and pundits and how they do it?
Exactly. Aside from the two of us on a big money deal, but...
I will think about that during the ad break. After which, though, just so you don't go away, we will also bring you Ole Gunnar Solskjaer talking today, Freddie Lundberg hitting back at Paul Scholes, who didn't think much of what Freddie wore. Did you see this?
Nonsense.
Yeah. So Freddie Lundberg asked about Scholes' comments where Scholes didn't think it was impressive that he didn't wear a suit to the first game. And we'll hear Mourinho ahead of his return to Old Trafford. So we'll run you through all that stuff in just a second.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Jeff and Heskey.
Heard the news? Aer Lingus' Black Friday deals are back, so it's time to act fast. And because we're taking €100 off return flights to North America, you can take off to an amazing Seattle city break, to Miami's brilliant beaches, or to the stunning West Coast sights of San Francisco. Just book by midnight Tuesday, December 3rd. Smart saves €100 for Black Friday. Smart flies Aer Lingus. Book now at aerlingus.com. Offer subject to conditions and availability.
Good weekend?
Put the tree up. You?
Well, I plumbed in a sub-zero microclimate to the lounge, so there's a perfect dusting of snow on the luscious boughs of our Norwegian spruce come the big day. Then the kids and I had an indoor snowball fight, much to the annoyance of the Arctic puffin we've temporarily rehomed. He prefers to watch Christmas films.
Arctic puffin?
Like going all out at Christmas? Try the new Chicken Deluxe. Succulent crispy chicken, cheese, red onion, lettuce, mayo, and zesty tomato relish. Only at McDonald's. Ends 1st of January, served after 11 a.m.
All you need this Christmas is carry-out off-licence. Make your money go further with our incredible deals on box beers, multi-pack cans and wines from all over the world. Plus our amazing Eastern European selection, such as the fantastic Perla beer range, now in stock. Fill your cupboard for less this festive season. Carry out off-licence. Simply better wines and beers. Simply better value. Enjoy alcohol responsibly. Visit drinkaware.ie.
Have you checked out the new Red Cow Moran Hotel? Wow, the sky really is the limit as we've added another 2 floors. The new superior bedrooms of this iconic hotel now boast their own winter gardens and panoramic views over the city. Red Cow Moran Hotel, transforming before your eyes. Visit redcowmoranhotel.com.
During the Joe Duffy used car sales event, we have reduced the prices of our used cars by up to €3,500. With an extensive range of over 1,000 cars to choose from, we are Ireland's leading motor group.
Think used cars, think Joe Duffy, think Joe Duffy.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Jeff and Heskey.
Welcome back. Burnley 0, Manchester City 3. They're into the final 10 minutes there. I've had a quick think about what people want from Amazon. They want really cool camera angles and the spider cams going across the pitch and all that kind of stuff. And then ultimately, they want good rows, good fights on air between pundits. Good old-fashioned rows. There's no fights anymore.
They definitely don't want new camera angles. New camera angles have been tried out with over the years. It just doesn't work.
Oh, I don't mean for actually when the action's underway.
Oh, for the replays.
Yeah, all that business. They want high production values. I like that.
They want some sort of VR.
All that kind of stuff. But I think ultimately you want a good row. I think, to be fair, Neville and Carragher have a good balance between insight and then a bit of jousting.
You know their online jousting, where it almost feels like it's going to get properly nasty? How choreographed do you think that is?
No, I think that's real and natural, but I think they both know what it is.
Amazon haven't got Roy. Obviously, Sky have in their contract that you can't do Amazon.
Don't have Neville,
because
don't
the
have
BBC
Roy,
lads are
don't
all
have
in
Carragher.
with Amazon.
Yeah, no Roy, no Carragher, no Neville. I think Neville and Carragher is about the best balance, isn't it? Really good analysis with a nice bit of jousting. But I don't watch Match of the Day ever and get a little bit of a row.
Do you know who I'd like to see? In studio together.
Making me blush now.
In studio together. Gary Breen, Damien Delaney. We need to get them in studio together. There's 2 lads that have a proper ding-dong.
Neither would back down.
No.
Yeah, and Kenny thrown in just to...
Oh, a bit of madness towards the end.
A bit of madness.
He'd be just sitting there.
Maybe Kenny presenting, who knows?
The way things are going, probably.
Yeah.
Won't be us, that's for sure.
Though it's interesting, actually, the studio is definitely a dying breed. Like, there'll always be commentary, but it was fun, even watching some of the BT, the rugby stuff over the weekend. Admittedly, they have a lot of games, but sometimes at half-time, they'll come back and just do commentator talking over
highlights,
2 or 3 minutes of highlights, another ad break, back to the commentator, another quick ad break, back into it. And the world hasn't lost its mind over it, and it's definitely becoming a more common thing.
No, but the cost of live sport is substantial, and there's so many more. Every game is now shown live.
Yeah.
So every single Champions League game, every single Europa League game is shown in Ireland, is shown in England. There's only so many co-commentators.
I sit by the phone. Oh, co-commentators, sorry. I thought you meant anchors.
Well, there's a lot of anchors, and Ivan Yates is the pick of them right now.
It seems that way. It seems that way. So Freddie Ljungberg, 2-2 draw at the weekend. He arrived in. Did you see what he was wearing? Like a shirt and kind of how would you describe it? A kind of a woolly jumper, not quite woolly.
Not quite Aaron sweater.
Yeah.
A more sophisticated version of an Aaron sweater.
Yes. And he could have worn, if he'd worn a blazer over I said yes as if I understood what that meant, but I've seen it. If he'd worn a blazer over it, it would have been smart. But it just looked like a guy wearing a jumper.
But I kind of looked at it and thought, it's Freddie Ljungberg.
Yeah.
Like, he's posed in, was it Calvin Klein underwear commercials?
Yeah.
He can sort of do what he wants at this stage.
Well, Paul Scholes said he didn't think much of that. He should have worn a suit to signify a certain discipline and a certain pride in the appointment. And Freddie Ljungberg obviously was going to be asked about that today.
Yeah, the suit was so quickly, so the suit was at dry cleaners. I couldn't get it ready. No, I feel, what shall I say? I've seen the Premiership. I've seen coaches with a tracksuit. I've seen coaches with a suit. I've seen coaches with a sweater. So I'll decide on match day which one I will use. So I work for the club, and what the club wants me to do, that's where I'm going to be. Of course, I'm very proud for this opportunity, but the future will tell what happens. What I try to concentrate is going forward. I've been here, I've done 2 training sessions now, and I don't want to talk about coaches before and stuff. I think Unai done a great job, a great leader, fantastic coach. So that's nothing for me to judge on. Look forward. Main thing for me was when we were in Norwich, we hadn't won an away game since the first game of the season. And I felt that the players could react that way, and we played that well, in my opinion, offensively. It was good, but now we go forward.
So that's his response. I mean, now he has to actually think about what he wears because am I bowing down to Paul Scholes if I wear a suit? He changed into a tracksuit for the game. Does it really matter what he arrives in? Maybe it does.
You see players, sometimes clubs let players wear what they want when they arrive at games.
Interestingly, Manchester United now are thinking of clamping down on that because they've been letting the players turn up in whatever they want pretty much. But there's a sense that the Jesse Lingards, who have their own clothing range, are getting a bit carried away.
And over thinking too much about what they're going to wear pre-match rather than their performance on the pitch.
Something like that.
There was a Newcastle defender whose name escapes me right now about 2 seasons ago. He used to turn up in a tuxedo before every single match. It was black and white, so maybe that was his thinking.
Yeah.
In honour of their supporters.
So Lundberg, it's too early to have any real sense of what he's going to do. Or
there doesn't seem to be any sense, though, that he's really in the reckoning to get the job, unless he does a Solskjaer and has this unbelievable Christmas period. He obviously decided he has a certain way he wants to play. He started Xhaka and he started Ozil. But I just thought at the back they were so open.
Wasn't pretty.
But who is the answer? Do they go after Pochettino? Would Pochettino take it? Like, that destroys the Pochettino legacy at Spurs.
Yeah, I don't think he will, because he's got too many options. What did you make of the Brendan Rodgers stuff? Even Rodgers been asked about it in Sky. I was talking to Pat Nevin earlier, and Rodgers giving it the old, well, look, at this moment in time, I'm obviously very focused on Leicester, at this moment in time, it's a hypothetical, a few more at this moment in times, and didn't shoot it down.
Well, he holds all the cards right now, so he doesn't need to shoot it down. What are Leicester going to turn around, haul him into the boardroom and say, commit yourself to this club, get out there in front of the media and say, I'm going nowhere.
Pay rise, please. That's
so
what Pat Nevin said.
Exactly.
Yeah. But would if they approached him, would he go?
For some reason, I think he wouldn't, but I'm very much in the minority. I just think Leicester are in such a good place right now. You can point out that Harry Maguire went to Manchester United, that if somebody comes in for James Maddison, is he going to go? Tielemans, will he go if one of the top 4 teams come in? But they're just such an exciting team, and Arsenal are a bit of a basket case.
Yeah. We will bring you Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Jose Mourinho tomorrow because they're both in action tomorrow. We've just run out of time ever so slightly. I should tell you that we asked you to identify our mystery voice earlier on. It was, of course...
They overcooked it a little bit.
Brian O'Driscoll. Congratulations to John Burns. You've won a pair of tickets, John, to come along to our Rugby Roadshow in Galway next Wednesday, the 11th of December. So we'll see you there. And if you missed out tonight, you can get on to offtheball.com/events to get the very last few tickets. Tomorrow morning, OTBAM is live, 7:30, as ever in the usual places, offtheball.com, the Go Loud app, OTB Sports Radio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Owen and Ger will be bringing you the latest round of our sporting moment of the decade, Shane Lowry versus Chicago All Blacks, and you'll be able to vote on Instagram and the Off the Ball Twitter page, and we'll reveal the winner on tomorrow night's show. We're live from 7. We'll have Rory Best in studio and Dennis Hogan on the show as well ahead of his fight on Saturday. 3-0 Man City, last few minutes to go there. Nathan Murphy, thank you.
Cheers, Joe.
Tom Dunn's on the way.
Give him a ball and he out of grass. He'll give you a move for the perfect pass. Give him a ball.